All right, guys. We are back here with another episode of Juice the Squeeze podcast. And I'm very, very happy to say that within this video, we were happened to be reached out by this brother, but we are watching the Brotha Podcast finally over here on YouTube. And to be honest with you, he's making amazing traction. At the time of when he hit me up, which was last evening, he had about 9,000. I'm already seeing about 11K, almost probably to 12K. And shout out to you, brother. I'm glad that you're doing all of this. And let's jump into this content.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's been a very, very interesting last 2 weeks. As you could imagine, a whole lot of crazy stuff's been going on in my life, and I wanted to give y'all a couple updates, as well as what today's topic would be, which is they are coming for me. They are coming for your boy. Long story short, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the feedback. I really genuinely took a lot of the feedback in about, the direction I should go in terms of how to approach certain things, in terms of how to communicate to both men and women. But the hate has been crazy. They according to those that dislike what I've had to say so far, apparently I'm a hater of women. Apparently I'm gay. Apparently I have a fake degree and I'm not a real therapist. That's news to me. So you could imagine folks is scouring the internet looking to see how they can shut your boy down and potentially get me to lose all my income. So it's unfortunate that people try to approach things in that way, but that's public life, I guess. Unfortunately, I don't know that they thought about the possibility that I not only intentionally did this, but I intentionally wanted to get those specific reactions from them. And I had 3 traps in mind. The first of which was number 1, Kevin Samuels.
Yes,
now,
sir.
I can recall not that long ago, constant thing that was said was, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And everyone was talking about, not everyone, but the ones who were like, the ones that really hated him, they were like, we don't like his tone. We don't like, how he's saying it to women. He's so disrespectful. And I really tried to make a concerted effort to not do that. Didn't matter. So it turns out one of my strategies was to prove that for many people who were against many of the true things that Kevin Samuels and Crimson Cure and many of the other commentators and podcasters have been saying, that is true about what's wrong in society and our culture and within our dynamics between men and women. Turns out a lot of you, it really wasn't about tone or how to say it. You just didn't like the messenger.
Damn, guys. And that right there is powerful because it doesn't matter how right you can be. If you don't like the person that, or the package that it comes in, if you have a bar of gold, I'm just going to put it to you like this, shipped to you for Christmas, but it comes in a damn meat sack of a gift. Does the value of the gold inside decrease? No, it's really like, and I'm not saying it to say that they're hideous, but these guys have been speaking absolute truths. And I'm not saying absolute, like you can't question it, but it's very much true by the results that they garner through what they've been saying. And like he said, the hate that you get from it, because it challenges the new status quo. And anything that's challenges the status quo, it's like you want to be against. But to wake up from what society is trying to push on you, you have to break that status quo. And I really appreciate the brother, Dr. Jeffrey James, man, because, he's working hard to do something that a lot of people are afraid to even try to do. So let's tap back in with him, though, because he's really speaking facts.
And you felt like because you didn't like who it was coming from or how it was packaged, you could reject the truth. And believe it or not, that was actually my goal. And to further prove that I think they really weren't interested in the truth, these were the same people that cheered when that man died. So honestly, I'm not super duper interested in wanting their praise when I saw what they were willing to cheer for. But strategy number 2, or trap number 2, is I wanted to expose the current zeitgeist that we're in presently in Western countries, especially in America. We are in a mental, verbal, cultural, and political matrix of control by Marxists, extremists, third and fourth wave feminists. We are in a gynocentric, femme-centered society culturally. And I think in the quest to kind of move us away from the patriarchy and de-center men, there was an option to kind of center both of us, to center families, to center community. Instead, the far extremists of the feminist movement decided we should prioritize and kind of center women and be female centered. This is why you'll hear terms like, as proof of this, believe all women, happy wife, happy life. They can pretty much be allowed to define what a real man is. They are allowed to say what's wrong with men, and their feelings can be above facts, even if it goes completely against their argument or their ideology. You know, it's one of those things that's pretty much infiltrated every major area of our culture and society, from schools to HR departments, the media, you name it. And basically, the conclusion was is that it was socially acceptable to point out men's bad behaviors, and we aren't allowed to do the same with women. Now, why is that problematic? Well, one, when women try to do it, they're called pick-me's, and they're told to have internalized misogyny and that they need to decenter men. But when men do it, what I've noticed both in myself and with other people, there seems to be a pattern of attack. And this was the second point I wanted to make.
So before he gets into it, because this is very powerful, I want to stop and say that it did shift so greatly. Because when I was young, we had a lot of community programs, the little brother, big sister, little sister, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all of these things have been absolved. There isn't any level of community of somebody that will actually look out for you, somebody that's vetted in these processes as well. And we've canceled that to then garner, and I'm not trying to say that this is wrong, but this is where I'm pretty sure Brother Jeffrey will say we overcorrected, but we have a lot more programs centered around young ladies. And then now we have much, much less for the young men. We don't have like men's groups so that way they can empower the other youthful young men to do positive things. At best, they have YouTube. Before, they had library circle reads, they had various community outreach programs where people from executive levels would come to reach out to younger and newer brothers about what was going on. And now we have a psychological takeover with social media. And there is no vetting process with social media. It's just whoever has a phone or the internet can say whatever. So it really depends on who you are listening to. And I think that all of these brothers, myself included, will tell you, even if you want to listen to me, take what I say with a grain of salt. Make sure that you compare it to something else in real life and see if it holds up weight. Because if it does not, then guess what? They aren't telling you the truth. They are just telling you things that make you feel good. Now, I'm going to let this brother keep speaking because I just wanted to drop y'all that little bit of knowledge. And what's even more crazy, because I would just remember this one point, is that we took it to the point where it's like he said, if you even try to correct any of the information that's going on, there's hate that happens. There's people that prey on your downfall, which is sick work, that laugh at your passing. And on top of that, it's just like, okay, if on the opposite side, if women can say however they feel like, guess what? It even got so extreme that men like an MTR, if you guys watch one of the greatest tutorials and reviews channels, MTR, you know that a lot of these gentlemen, not saying all of them were unwarranted, but they made an entire list for the government saying that men were about to start an insurrection because we had a voice about what was going on in our own lives. It's absolutely that insane.
Wanted to expose how rampant and normalized this culture of primarily centering women and women's feelings and women's issues and women's concerns and women's perspectives. Anyone that steps out of line against it, especially men, this is typically the pattern of attack. They're called the misogynist. They're told not that, you know what, maybe what he's saying could be true, and maybe this is something I as an individual woman or us collectively need to improve on. Instead, they say, nope, if I don't like what he's saying and it's about us, he has to hate women. Then they go to the second part. They'll call you sassy if you continue to engage. They'll call you gay. If you have a relationship, they'll try to figure out a way to undermine it or destroy it. They will obviously attempt to go through your past, scour the internet, find out what they can to try to expose you to hopefully destroy your credibility and kind of, remove you from the audience, so to speak. And then last,
And what he's speaking about is a social assassination. And that's something that Kevin would speak about also. And it's something that's very clear in any comment section across the internet. And I'm going to go back after he speaks about all of this and check out the comments that he was speaking on, because, we can go to the Lapeef Network, and I again, like, this brother is speaking the absolute truth to our community. So why try to hurt his message? If it's not a message for you, absolutely don't receive it.
They'll come for your credentials and they'll try to destabilize you economically, with the hope being that you will believe what we believe and say what we allow you to say, and we will do all that we can do to break you until we get you to be silent and in submission. That is the environment that we're currently operating in and have been for quite a while. When it comes to men speaking out about dating, relationships, and general habits that's happening in the culture, not when I say something about men, only when I say something about women. But number 3, and this is the one that I think probably hits home the most. I wanted to do a social experiment by kind of throwing some of these things out there during these podcasts. And I had an hypothesis that there was a rampant, very normalized, just distaste and hatred and lack of care for men and men's issues. I think based on everything we've been seeing online and a lot of these comments, I think my point has been proven. And I know.
And that's been something that's been very clear in the observable of reality, honestly, since the time of COVID. I think that when a lot of the men-centric content started to come out, there was a lot of this, build up of, silence and not being able to speak out on what they felt like was wrong. And now that it has come to a head and there are now literal groups coming together, forming, I think that we need to really dissect what's really going on. But for it to be 5 years later, and we've seen the advancement of some of these issues and not any particular, help in it, we may need to see what it is that will work that hasn't been working already.
I know this because with everything I just said so far, most of you men and women would acknowledge, and in 2025, everybody knows what the term is for a strong hatred and distaste for women: misogyny, or being a misogynist. Fortunately, a lot of people did not hear and or find out what the equivalent was for having a strong hatred and distaste for men. That's called being a misandrist or misandry. The fact that you didn't know, or the fact that you just found out, is proof that we've actually been functionally, culturally in an environment where one half of the population has been above reproach, and the other half are the only ones that's seen as sinners. So with this social experiment of trying to expose this rampant distaste and hatred and lack of just genuine care for men and men's issues, case in point was like paternity tests. What were many of the comments that were being said? Stop whining. Why should we care? Men created the system, so men need to, it's men's issue. Oh, that's an apex fallacy, by the way. And I also made a point in the Sharing My Truth podcast with the two lovely ladies. I had said the only time a lot of women will care about men is often if they are in a relationship with them, if they are related to them, or if they can control him. And I think that my point has been proven. They expose themselves when we bring up something or anything that is a benefit to women at the expense of men, and they will not and won't want it to ever change. Maya Angelou, when she said, when someone shows you who they are, you need to believe them the first time. Now, when I use the terms like feminists and third and fourth wave feminists, that actually includes both men and women, because there are male feminists, by the way. I see those individuals, those that are on the farthest extremes of only being able to see good in one sex and not the other, not being able to critically be open to critiquing both sides and seeing as both sides needing to bring something to the table to fix what's happening. We need to start labeling these people as loners. They are loud, obnoxious, narcissistic, entitled, and either rude and or ratchet. Male and female loners. If you come into contact with them during conversations on social media, in person, and they are loud, obnoxious, narcissistic, entitled, and rude and or ratchet, they are loners. We have to leave them alone. We have to leave them alone on OnlyFans. We need to leave them alone in dating. We need to leave them alone in social interactions until they realize that there is value in terms of the perspectives from the other side. No, we don't need to just center men. No, we don't need to just center women. We need to figure out a way to care about both sides, both issues. And when I or other people point out a particular issue of concern, you've been socialized to believe that if the person that's sitting in front of you is telling you what you want, it's got to be true. And if the person that's telling you something you don't want to hear, it's got to be false. You got to get that out of your head. Get that out of your mental. Sometimes when you're hearing things that you may not like, I'm not saying just believe me off the rip. Don't believe anyone just off the rip. Why don't you go and test it for yourself?
That's
go
what
and
I
research
said.
it.
Yes,
go
sir.
and look at studies. Go and try to prove me wrong, or go and try to prove yourself wrong. So those are my 3 traps. And as you can see, based off of everything that's happened in the last 2 weeks, hook, line, and sinker, they fell for it. We exposed the Marxist matriarchy that we are living and experiencing as we speak. There's 2 books that I'm presently in the process of working through this summer. Orwell's 1984 and Huxley's Brave New World. I highly, highly recommend that you order both those books. And if you read both those books, you'll learn about the internal and external ways that a civilization can kind of crumble, and how to readily identify it when people in your everyday life, as well as people in the media, politicians, religious figures, and even your common neighbors, could be knowingly and or unknowingly contributing to the decline of our culture and or our society. And now you have a choice of how you want to respond, because you're better able to see it. When your eyes open from the matrix and you take the red pill, you eventually get to a point where you're like, whoa, I actually don't have to just bow down and submit to things that I know isn't true. In life, in my friendships, in the workplace, we can't.
Now, wait a minute. Did this man just openly say he's taking the red pill? And if you don't understand the reference, that's a reference from the Matrix, and it shifted into the community, which really much caters towards and honors truth above what it is that makes you feel good in this world. It is taking a scalpel and breaking things down to its very root and seeing what it is that does work, what it is that doesn't work, what it is that is causing rot, cancerous to our body, and trimming it away. If you are in the blue pill space, you are pretty much living. It's a placebo. It's just allowing that disease to fester without any type of treatment.
Can't keep redefining what truth is. Some things are just wrong. And listen, I'm not the perfect candidate. In my next episode, I'm going to cover very much in detail my flaws, my brokenness, my shortcomings, and what I've learned from it. And not wanting to be seen as some high, mighty person, but just a human being that wants things to be better. And that if I bring my vulnerability, my honesty, and my transparency on one hand, and my experience, my knowledge, and my desire to learn more on the other hand, I think that perhaps this message can kind of break through and be just one of many messages, not only from me, but others, to really try to come at this thing just differently. And lastly, y'all, the Kevin Samuels comparisons have been hilarious. So me and my friends, we laugh about this stuff. That was it, Kevin Samuels 2.0, Kevin Samuels reincarnated. Y'all are hilarious, man. That's a high honor to really be compared to that dude.
Yeah, you're the godson, man. That's what I'm hearing on the internet. They calling you Kevin Samuels Kevin Samuels godson, bruh. That's what they call you. And I appreciate you too, brother Jeffrey St. James, even for coming over and looking at this channel myself, because I'm a small and up and comer. Like I said, yeah, man, if you guys can see this down here at the bottom, he was at 9K just yesterday. It's almost at 12K. So if you can, this is his information. And you know what? Let's look at these comments. Like I said, so I want you guys to make sure you jump down, hit the subscribe button, hit the noti bell. You want to be personal. I got personalized because got a lot going on. But you make sure you hit all for him. It's a very interesting thing. You know, he has a lot of good brothers in here trying to protect what he's trying to build. And I think that, you know, we got to protect this man because he's doing a lot of beautiful things. And then, I also want to show you this other video of him. But make sure you guys do me this one favor because it's absolutely free to you. Do it for me and the Ask the Brother podcast. Just hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. It's absolutely free to you. And guess what? It helps us to grow and to grow this message because it allows us to see the perspectives of both sides. So we're going to get into what he spoke about with the divorce attorney, the number one around, the lead attorney. Okay? So bear with us, kids. We got to see it.
I need y'all to hear me clearly because what I'm about to say is going to make some therapists very uncomfortable. Therapy was never neutral. It was hijacked. And I'm not just talking. Let's start with a licensed therapist who's worked with real men, military, street guys, leaders.
For a lot of men, their ability to genuinely feel better about the problems in their life is when the problem is identified. They're given steps and instructions on how to resolve it, and the issue and problem is resolved. For women, sometimes they want the issue resolved, but a lot of times their healing, validation, and their feeling of catharsis is just by the nature of being heard, being seen. And sometimes they'll feel better even when the issue that they were referencing or talking about doesn't even go away or change.
That right there, that's the problem. Therapy today expects emotional performance, not real masculine energy. Now check this out. A 20-year attorney who took time to study some political strategies around men during the previous presidential race revealed how male psychology wasn't funded to help men. It was studied to leverage them.
The Democratic Party is destroyed. They are now spending $20 million of our tax dollars to learn how to speak to men.
The Democratic Party appears to still be in fact-finding mode. The New York Times reports that party donors and strategists have been gathering at luxury hotels to discuss how to win back working-class voters. And they're spending $20 million on an effort to try to figure out how to speak to young men. Quote, "It is codenamed SAM, short for Speaking with American Men, a strategic plan."
You know what? I'm not surprised this was a play.
If you have to spend $20 million to figure out what men want, then you really don't deserve to represent men in this country. I don't know what is going on with this world anymore.
What pains me the most about this play by the Democrats is that when I saw so many black women voting for that side, it dawned in on me that one or two things could be true. A lot of black women don't understand men, or they're blindly supporting a party that doesn't.
There is a huge political party in this country trying to convince men that they are not anti-men. And Lord knows these Democrats choose some of the most insane stances to go to war over. But let's back up. What specifically are the Democrats looking for in investing this $20 million?
The Speaking with American Men plan promises to invest in syntax and language to connect with men. It also recommends advertising in video games and avoiding a moralizing tone.
Video games.
That is crazy because I
work.
thought there was a hatred toward men, especially adult men, for playing video games.
Oh, now this is ironic. Now they're going to embed advertisements in video games. How many times have men been demonized for gaming? Heaven.
I mean, they're just seeing that, honestly, as a upwards $14 trillion industry, that there's no way that they can avoid video games because it has taken shape in the ways that, and that's funny because you pushed it away for so long, saying it would only include violent tendencies. And, you know, give or take, you could be correct in some cases, or it could be the culture around us that has failed us, that has caused people to ignite themselves in an uproar. But you want to aim to reverse the erosion of Democratic support among young men, especially online, studies the syntax, language, and the context that gain attention and virality in these spaces, and pro-democratic ads in video games. What are you going to say in those games, bro? Like, you've honestly gone to the other side. So it's $20 million for that. You ain't spent enough.
forbid that a man works hard all day long and wants to come home and decompress by gaming a little bit. Men have been told for years that playing video games is childish and a waste of time. But now look who wants to place ads in the middle of Call of Duty, hoping to reach these same men that they have insulted for so long. These Democrats should just come right out and say that they do not like men. They want the feminization of this country, and they label any masculine trait as toxic. They tell boys that being competitive is wrong and that ambition is oppressive and that fatherhood is optional. Democrats now want to convince men that we should feel guilty for being real men at all.
So it wasn't about healing. It was about managing male behavior for control. And we didn't even know we were paying for this level of manipulation. So do you believe therapy has been feminized? And if so, has that made men less likely to seek help or even trust therapists?
Well, just before he even gets into being in the mental health space myself, you know that it's a largely women-led space. So I don't think that it's that push men away from the space. There was a lot of stigmatism initially involved when it came out. And then on top of that is there aren't enough men of a likewise to understand where they're coming from. Like you said, in large, like I said, like in large, there are a lot more women. So when you speak about your issues as a man, sometimes that lens does not always see in the exact same way. So trying to, translate your issues. And I would say at a younger age, if you're doing therapy, before you're fully developed, this doesn't matter as much. But once you're at the developed age and you're looking for perspective from somebody of a similar ilk, you're going to want to speak to a man if you are a man. Same as if you're a woman, you're going to want to speak to a woman that understands where you are coming from.
People can use the word feminized. I will say it definitely has feminist leanings and it's female dominated by default. But it includes men and women who are pushing a particular way of communication, a particular way of, I'll say it this way. For a lot of men, their ability to genuinely feel better about the problems in their life is when the problem is identified. They're given steps and instructions on how to resolve it, and the issue and problem is resolved. That is how men feel better. For women, sometimes they want the issue resolved, but a lot of times their healing, their validation, and their feeling of catharsis is just by the nature of being heard, being seen. And sometimes they'll feel better even when the issue that they were referencing or talking about doesn't even go away or change. It's just the idea that somebody finally hears me. I'm allowed to vent. The issue with that is if you bring those two parties with those two problem-solving techniques into play, if one side is trying to keep bringing up the same thing over and over, I know we've been talking about this for the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months. And the other side is like, all right, you gonna forgive me or not? We gonna fix this or not? You're in a situation where the therapist will struggle if they don't recognize what I'm talking about. They will pick a side of who they're going to prioritize, and one side will feel validated and the other side will not. So unfortunately for a lot of men, it's very difficult for them to come across a therapist, let alone a male therapist, who already knows what I'm talking about and is able to acknowledge what both parties tend to need in real time. So men's perspective is, if what I'm going through in the house is another version of that just being tag team, I'm good. And that's, for a lot of men, that's unfortunately their experience. So yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I hear a lot of guys saying men don't need to go to therapists. They just need to go to other brothers who have the outcomes that they're trying to achieve to figure out if those guys can teach them how to get around the challenges and obstacles. But I think those guys are in deeply they believe that, yeah, if I go to therapy, she's just going to be an expert version of my wife to tell me that, yeah, go listen to your wife. Happy wife, happy life. And it's funny you say that. And the thing about the women, because I've run into this with, you know, in relationships with women, and I'm married, you know, I noticed that I had to learn specifically what you just stated about. It's not always conducive to go and attack the problem and just rectify it and solve the problem. You're dealing with a woman who wants to get you to try to embrace and understand the sensitivity of the situation, her feelings. And regardless if you can fix the problem, I want to know, do you know how I feel? Yeah. And I started to learn that in a lot of occasions, that's all that really matters. The problem can be, the house can burn down. But do you know how the smoke, do you know how it feels to be able to ingest?
Yeah, man. So it's wildly frustrating, but what I will say, and I'm speaking to men when I say this, I'm learning it too. I'm living it in real time. And I'm learning that our refusal to acknowledge that need is why there's such a massive disconnect and why they end up leaving. So if we don't get that piece, that, and again, this is the same with women, but like, if we don't acknowledge that they are not us, they don't see it like us, they're not going to completely see it like us, they're not even going to feel about it the same way we do. Both sides have to figure out a way of, you know what, this is a moment where I am going to set aside my need for yours and hope that once your need is fulfilled, you can do the same for me. That's the challenge, is figuring out what does my wife or girlfriend need in this moment, and who's going to take the initiative to initiate catering to the need of the other party with the assumption that eventually it will be returned.
That's it right there. So listen, y'all, again, I just want to say thank you all for watching. This has been your boy, brother and Dr. Jeffrey St. James. I appreciate him. I love the content. As you can see all this man's appearances. We'll go over some more of his stuff as we, come in and go. I'm really hoping to get this brother on the podcast. We knew podcasters need to help each other out, but he's making traction, and I'd also appreciate that. So we don't know what he has in store, but we wish you the best here over at Juice to Squeeze Podcast. And as always, my good people, I want you to live as long as you want, never want as long as you live, and always squeeze the best juice out of life.